We will next move on to item 6.1, our update on the implementation of Senate Bill 1440. Quickly, before we do that again, Vice Chancellor Garcia, you weren't here this morning, but I wanted to give a special thanks to you for a job really well done last night. It was by far the best one in my years here, and I was so pleased to see so many legislators. So on behalf of our board, thank you for the great work. Okay, Vice Chancellor Skinner and our Academic Senate President.
Good morning, President Himmelstein, Chancellor Scott, members of the Board of Governors.
Hang on one second.
Sure.
Eric, Jerry, you're catching on to this, Jerry. Yeah.
Nice work. The next item before you is an update on the implementation of Senate Bill 1440. This is a standing item so that you as a board can stay apprised of what's going on and provide leadership around the implementation of this landmark legislation. As you know, SB 1440, carried by Senator Padilla, set out to improve transfer pathways between the community colleges and CSU. And the update at this meeting is going to be shared between myself and Academic Senate Michelle Pilati. I'm going to start off by just providing a little bit of an update on some of the statistics. At the last board meeting, the community colleges, the local community colleges had a total of 310 degrees for transfer that have been approved. Since that point, we've approved 37 additional degrees, or up to 347. That's really the tail end of this year's process. There's a cyclical process that plays out at the colleges, and we're at the tail end of this year's process, and it won't really kick up into high gear again until the fall. There'll be some administrative planning and cleanup that will happen over the summer, but the gears really won't start grinding in earnest again until the fall. But that's in progress, 37 additional degrees. As you recall, centerpiece of the last board meeting update on this item had to do with districts achieving the minimum level of compliance, which for the initial year was defined as each college having at least 2 degrees for transfer in place. At the last board meeting there were 5 colleges that had at that point not achieved that minimum threshold. The board showed great interest in that, and as a result decided to invite all the local leaders, the college presidents, to come present at this board meeting if they had not achieved that 2-degree threshold by the time of the meeting. And the good news is we have full compliance now. So I think the invitation had its desired effect, and Vice Chancellor Russell deserves a lot of credit for beating that drum, and I saw the email chains go up back and forth, and it definitely got attention. So I think it also speaks to the influence that you as a board can have when you get creative and use the tools at your disposal to push policies forward. So at this point, again, 347 degrees approved. And while all colleges have achieved the minimum threshold of 2 degrees, many colleges have more than that in place, and I'd just like to spotlight a few of them. American River College has 9 degrees for transfer approved. College of the Canyons has 7 approved. Golden West, 7 degrees approved. Long Beach City College, also 7 degrees approved. And Pasadena City College leads the pack at this point with 10 degrees in place. So I'm sorry that Board Member Baum can't be here to hear that, but that's definitely that district deserves some kudos for moving forward. So at this point, again, we are looking forward to that next year's fall process kicking into gear. The message that we're sending out to the districts and to the colleges is reflecting the goals that this board discussed at your last meeting, in which the goal is to have 80% of degrees, of transfer pathways covered by these new degrees by the fall of 2013, and having 100% of the pathways covered by fall of 2014. And so that's the message that we're taking out to the field. It's an ambitious goal, given the work that needs to happen at the local level to make that happen, especially given the current fiscal backdrop that can get in the way of planning at times. But we think that it's attainable. And oftentimes the building out of these degrees really isn't building a degree from scratch, but simply a matter of taking a look at the current degree requirements, making some slight modifications, maybe no modifications at all, and then taking that through the approval process. So I did want to note that another kind of dimension, the importance of these degrees has been heightened recently, and I think it's important that you as a board are aware of this. The California State University, as a result of the budget cuts they've dealt with, have been forced to restrict their admissions. And they've indicated that for spring of 2013, which is the next application cycle that's open, that they will only be entertaining transfer students with these 1440 degrees. So yeah, it's a strong indication, I think, of the commitment from CSU, clear indication that they recognize the value of these degrees and that they reflect solid preparation on the part of the students that possess the degrees. But I think it's also a strong message to our colleges that if we want to be competitive, if we want to offer the best probability of success for our students, all our colleges need to get on board and really promulgate and expand these degrees off into all the pathways that they offer to their students. So that's the update I wanted to provide. Just in transition to President Pallotti, I would just reiterate a point that you've heard, I think, during the previous updates, that the implementation of SB 1440 continues to be truly a collaborative effort. Not only a collaborative effort between the community college system and the CSU system. We get together every month with their leadership and their representatives from their local colleges, as well their local campuses, along with representatives from our system. And at those what we call the Implementation Oversight Committee meetings, we meet monthly and hash through the details of this and ensure that progress is continuing to be made. So that not only is the collaboration there with CSU, but absolutely with the Senate and with faculty. Without the leadership of the Academic Senate, we would not be where we are now. And President Pallotti has played a very important and central role in terms of the continued progress of this initiative. And pleased to be here with her today, and I'll just kick it over to her.
Good morning. So you have the degrees that are sort of one way of measuring what's happening with 1440, but as you know, all the degrees that have been developed so far are based on transfer model curriculum that are developed by intersegmental discipline faculty. The idea being to have one degree that ideally will work at all CSUs. And our work on the TMCs, we're nearing the end of that work, or at least of identifying what disciplines we're going to address. So next week, the intersegmental curriculum work group will be deciding what will be the final transfer model curriculum that are going to be developed. Because as you get further and further down the list, the effort involved in creating the TMC starts to not make quite that much sense because you're not serving as many students. So we're looking at finalizing which TMCs that we are going to be developing. We also are hoping to later this week have 2 new TMCs that will be finalized. That's journalism and geography. We may have mentioned that those were in progress. We have a meeting later this week to sort of review the vetting process to see that everything went as it's supposed to, so that we can finalize those and colleges can then look at them and CSUs can determine whether or not they're similar or not to their degrees. One of the really nice things to be able to report at the last oversight committee, the CSU keeps on establishing more and more TMCs and similar. The numbers keep on getting better and better, and that's something that we hope will continue so that we can get to close to 100% of the CSUs with a given major taking a TMC aligned degree. So we're really excited about that. The other piece that we're starting to get into is how do we get messages out to counselors and students about these degrees so that people understand the degrees and how they work. So we have a counseling materials subcommittee that's been working and developing materials. They've developed PowerPoints for use with counselors to teach counselors about the degrees, and also to work to be used with students, so that when community colleges are doing orientations in the fall, they'll have these materials available to share with students. They're also working on a frequently asked questions list. And one thing that they've also developed that I think is really useful is they had a group of counselors in the room, some who were real familiar with everything and some who were not, generated questions from them that are now coming back to the ICW and the IOC to get answers, so that there won't be these sort of complicated questions out there that have not answered. We also have scheduled to have regional train-the-trainer meetings in the fall, so to train a counselor to be able to go back and train other people about degrees. So we're really working on that educating of the college community about the degrees, so that there will be people there who can answer questions when students have them. That's sort of that next piece that we really need to finalize. And one of the things to note, the LAO will be publishing a report really soon talking about the status of 1440. They've interviewed a number of us, and so we're looking forward to seeing what they have to say. And that's it.
Great. Just a question before I get to other board members. I'm delighted that the colleges are all in compliance now. Can you identify any particular issue or problem with the 5 colleges that were, I guess I would call, late in complying? Was there something that got in the way that you could identify?
I'll share my thought, and then if Vice Chancellor Russell, if you'd like to join us here, and he and his staff have been on the front lines in terms of moving districts along. I would say what I've noted is I think it in this system it just takes a while to get everybody's attention, and you know, you've got 112 colleges. It takes just to get everyone to understand that this is for real. This is moving forward. This is an important reform we need to get on board. Took some time, and I think what we've achieved is that getting that message across that this is the way forward, and I think we've particularly through your action with those last few districts to invite them up to tell their story to you personally. I think that made them realize that this is something that is moving forward. So Barry, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Well, is this?
Yes.
It's on. Okay, good. I would typify the problems at the local level as more infrastructure problems, and I think campuses deal with this all the time. Whenever there is any sort of transition from the president all the way down through the classified staff, it takes a while for things to kind of catch up. And so I think in those 5 cases, there were issues at the local campus where someone went to, a key person retired out of the system, and then the next person didn't have the password to sign on, and then didn't understand, the process of how it worked. So my staff worked endlessly and with lots of phone calls to try to support that and move things along.
Well, good job. It's a good result. Chancellor Scott wanted to say something.
Well, there's a lot of plaudits to go around. You recall 2 years ago when 1440 passed, it was a wonderful breakthrough. Many people referred to it as historic because it was a system-wide approach to transfer. And rather than it being college by college and university by university, now it was going to be system-wide. But like anything else, theory is one thing, implementation is another. And I was so excited and pleased by the Academic Senate's response. They met regularly and long hours with the CSU Academic Senate. And you can imagine the kinds of discussions that have to take place when you're hammering out exactly what would be the lower division for subject matter like English or communications or psychology. And so it was a great effort And a great work was begun by Jane Patton, and it's been followed up so admirably by Michelle Pilati. And so I really want to thank the Academic Senate. I want to thank you, Eric, for your leadership of the committee. The Oversight Committee was composed of Eric gave the leadership on the side of the community colleges, and his counterpart in California State University gave leadership on that side. And then, you know, the follow-up that Barry Russell did. I told him after he finally succeeded, I said, you know, we often talk about the carrot and the stick, and most of the time we use the carrot, but finally we had to use the stick. And the stick was the fact that we would simply ask those colleges to come up here and explain to the Board of Governors why they hadn't been able to complete their task. And most of the presidents preferred to be absent today. So we were very glad to see that happen. Just so much has happened in this way, and I'm so proud of the response. I constantly comment on the wonderful work of the vice chancellors, and we just see that all the time in all the work that the Board of Governors sees. Oh, by the way, they indicated that Pasadena City College led with 10 of those degrees, and I can't attribute that to anything other than maybe the residual effect of an ex-president.
Member Baca.
Well, you know, I just want to add a little bit to that, and I can't quite be as eloquent as a chancellor, but you know, when we lay out a vision, and that's kind of the job of the leadership, and Chancellor Scott certainly has done that in bundles, but to get it really done requires a real commitment and a lot of groundwork. I attended some of the seminars that the Academic Senate put on. There was a lot of involvement. There was a lot of work, and Jane Patton, Michelle, Julie, Beth, and many others just really work hard at getting this stuff done. And that's the role of the Academic Senate, to really work toward that end, to make things happen in a way that makes it effective. And of course the Chancellor's staff, Vice Chancellor Skinner and Russell among others, you know, just work diligently all the time to get it to happen as well. So, you know, we had some stragglers, but I think we're complete in the work, at least in that direction.
Member Malumed and then Member Yang.
I want to thank you for all the hard work. This is one issue that for all the 7 years I've been on the board, I'm happy to see it working. It makes a lot of sense, so thank you for your hard work. And I'm feeling kind of jubilant, so my other question is, any discussions with the UC? I was just remembering when our governor was here and he said he'd help facilitate a meeting in his office. So has that discussion started, or do you think it will be in our near future?
Well, I hope it's in our near future. As you know, there's a constitutional matter that we cannot pass legislation that requires the UC to do it. My own sense, if you were to, I'm going to try to get into the forecasting business, when suddenly it's seen that community college students are more anxious to go to CSU because of the ease of transfer than to UC, I think that little reminder will help bring that about. There's been discussion, but so far there's been no specific commitment on the part of UC. Maybe Michelle looks like she wants to say something. So.
There is a proposal being distributed throughout UC, and you think we're bureaucratic, there even more so, things take a lot of time there. And it's a proposal to, for any student who were to apply to a UC who has completed one of these degrees, they would be guaranteed a review of their application. So maybe they didn't quite make it based on the GPA, but they would be guaranteed that more holistic look at their preparation. So that is something that their admissions committee is circulating, and we're hoping that will happen. That way a student could do a 1440 degree and then also have a chance at getting into UC, so where they would get their foot in the door when they might not normally have been given a look. So and in talking to counseling faculty, they see that as a very valuable thing.
That sounds like it's
Yeah.
starting already then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I would just add that UC regularly sends a representative to the IOC meetings, the Implementation and Oversight Committee meetings to monitor. So it's clear that they're seeing this come down the tracks, and I think that they will engage and want to be on board with it.
And they also have done things like, they've been doing things similar to what we've been doing, bringing their faculty together to look at the determinations that the UC and that the CSU and the community college faculty came up with to see how would that work for UC as well.
Oh, very exciting. Thank you.
Member Yang.
I as well want to congratulate you guys on your good work. And I think the training for the counselors are definitely a great idea. That's how students find out what opportunities are there for them. But I do have one more question now. If there was any plans to let students know what degrees are available on each campus, because I know there are students who actively go to their counselors to seek advice. However, there are a large majority of students who don't do that regularly. And I was wondering what are the plans to get the students to know what's available to them.
Vice Chancellor Mikulowski, would you like to comment? It looks like she's got a response. Although, while she's getting the mic, I would say I think it's part and parcel of the local outreach. You know, having the counselors informed with information about what pathways are available. You know, making that information clear in the catalogs and take it from there.
That work's going on two fronts. On the wide scale, Vice Chancellor Feast is actually working on building a website that will be widely available and publicized for students and parents and teachers to look at. And then Michelle mentioned the counseling materials. My staff have been working with the Academic Senate and counselors to develop both web tools and hard copy tools that counselors can use to talk through these degrees with students, and that can be made available in high schools as well. So we are definitely working on getting the word out.
Member McDougall.
If I may, one question and then 3 quick comments. Question, just to have a sense, Michelle, of the context, what we've accomplished and what our ultimate objective is. How many majors do we now have agreements for? How many do we expect at the end of 2013? And what is our ultimate objective in terms of being able to cover all the students who want to transfer?
So we're not going to, our goal isn't necessarily to cover all of them, particularly not with
What is our goal?
We estimate that with the disciplines that we are prepared to address, we will have covered at least 80% of the transfer students.
So how many majors do we now have? What do we expect at the end of the year?
Probably about, it's going to be close to 25.
25?
Yeah. We're at 18 now, right? We're at 18 now with 2 more that we will hopefully finalize by the end of the week. So we'll have 20. And then we have others that are in progress.
So what do we expect?
We should have 25 by the end of this year.
Okay.
And then a few more after that. One of the things that we're looking at is for some of the sort of the next ones in line, because we look at them based on how many students transfer in a given discipline. And so some of the ones that we need to look at, we need to figure out if it makes sense to try to do a statewide degree. Is there consistency across the program such that would work? So that's sort of the reason we don't have a specific number. Next meeting, I will be able to give you a specific number.
Okay, I think it would be helpful to have a listing of the majors.
Absolutely.
And what majors are anticipated that we would have transfer
And,
for.
yeah, we
Because
will.
as full as it is, obviously, it's better. Comments, to me, one of the most significant comments that was made this morning was the comment that was attributed to Chancellor Reed that only individuals transferring who will be guaranteed admission will be students transferring under this, the ages of 1440. So it shows how tremendously significant it is and how important it is for our students. And thank goodness we have it, because it's providing that avenue. But I think that what was mentioned about the work with our own counselors and informing them of this program is very, very important. But I would assert that I think even more important is getting the word out to high school counselors so that students, as they plan in their freshman and sophomore years, as they're getting their direction, have a sense of where to go. So I don't know how well equipped we are to communicate with our, the people on the high school level, but I think that's really a critical area. So the early planning that needs to be done for students' programs can be done at that time. And the last comment is, I think this is one of the brightest stars, if you will. There's a lot of bad news out there, and there's a need for good news. And I would hope, given the status of it, that both Chancellor Scott and Chancellor Reed, getting out there how the system is working on behalf of students and where we stand on this, an update, if you will, would be a piece of good news that would be well received within the state. So I would urge that we
I think those are
publicize that.
points well taken. Perhaps Vice Chancellor Feast could maybe just,
The microphone was taken away.
well, use your booming voice.
Okay, here we are.
Just,
Thank you. Part of the marketing plan for SB 1440 is to distribute collateral materials to all high schools in August when the website goes up. And so all high schools, community colleges will be receiving those when the website goes up. So
And they'll have a list of all the majors.
yes.
good. Points well taken for McDougal. Just one final comment, Michelle, or maybe you can help me, and let's keep it brief, because I want to keep things going. I want to follow up on Member Malumed's points, this issue of UC, and you say that that's progressing. At the same time, it was announced last week that UC San Diego was eliminating the TAG program. I think it is. What? Yeah, for students coming from San Diego community colleges and into UC, which my understanding is gives them preference. Correct? How is that different? And do those intersect or conflict?
Yeah, Linda can go to more detail, but the TAG was really the predecessor to 1440 in terms of setting up these often kind of local agreements. Linda, do you have the update on what?
So would, Eric,
yeah.
would 1440 take precedence then in a legislative sense or in a legal?
Yes, I think from an implementational sense, that's the plan, is that we will transfer over, and it's our hope that the tags, the transfer agreements would remain in place until 1440 is in place, but eventually 1440 will serve that function.
It's definitely been the case in the CSU system that the SB 1440 has taken the place of TAG agreements. And in UC, we still have work to do to, get them fully on board with the 1440 approach. But I think that, we'll see progress in the same direction. I think that their recent move to stop the TAG agreements reflects the terrible compression in higher education and the fact that they simply, can't accommodate the great demand, and they want more flexibility than is provided when they enter into these agreements with students, 2 years or more before their actual point of transfer. So I think, this is a way to highlight a more efficient way that California can progress in transfer, making our whole system of higher education more efficient. And perhaps if we continue to focus on that we can increase the state investment.
Yeah. Maybe Vice Chancellor Skinner-McCloskey, could you let me know, or maybe the board as a whole, are there other UCs that have made similar announcements? Because it was very disturbing to me in my community. Anyway, a short one, Member McDougal, and we kind of.
Yeah, I just think that one of our most important responsibilities as a board is to ensure that that pathway of transfer continues to be open to our students who come in with that assumption and the promise that we hold out for them. So we want to be certain that both UC and CSU are accommodating, and then Pierce CSU is doing that job. I have a question. There used to be a ruling on lower division to upper division, 60-40 or 65-35, and I don't know if that is still in the law or not, and still applicable, because it seems to me that becomes particularly important if push comes to shove as to what the priority is and our students being protected.
Chancellor.
Let me address candidly some of the problems we have. In the first place, that 60-40 agreement is only a go. There's nothing in it that has the teeth to do it. And it's been my experience that frequently the university faculty, the upper division, some of them, after all, are not as attuned maybe to the financial difficulties facing the state of California, and so somebody says, well, in order for somebody to get a degree from this institution of which I'm teaching in, they need to have this and this and this, and it gets a little frustrating, and that's why, to be blunt, we decided that the best way to solve this problem was to go to legislation, because we've been talking about this for 20 or 30 or 40 years. So we're going to have some difficulties along the way. To be honest, I think the four-year institutions in San Diego have been the most resistant. Right. I say that, you know, maybe if I were in San Diego, I might not say that. Oh, I really would, because they are the San Diego State and now UC San Diego. They are, particularly I know San Diego State is perhaps the most impacted state universities, California State University in the state. But they've also been kind of resistant. And I have always simply said, you know, Senator Padilla, it may not be through legislating, because Senator Padilla is very interested in the outcome of this bill. And we, as I talked about the carrot and the stick, there may be some future legislation on this issue to make sure that that happens, because this is in the best interest of the state of California. It's not just in the best interest of students, who after all is whom we serve, but we estimate that as a result, when this is fully implemented, 1440, we will be able to educate 55,000 more community college students and 15,000 more California State University students at the same cost. Yeah. You know how that works. If a student can get through, instead of graduating with 150 or 60 units, they graduate with 135 units. Think of the savings that is for the state of California, but it's also a great saving for the students. So this is very, very important. Sure is. And in my parting, I would just say, Board of Governors, keep your eye on this. Now, you know, also recognize, you know, the limits of your own authority. We can't tell CSU and UC what to do. We can encourage and cajole and whatever we might want to do. But I want to lay out the difficulty of this because, you know, frequently those who are making decisions, unfortunately, sometimes don't fully appreciate the students that we serve. And that just has to be always foremost. You know, I sometimes say it's a little bit like a hospital where the doctors and nurses think they're the most important people in the hospital when really the patients are. And the students are the most important thing in our institutions. And if we get this implemented, we will have the thanks of literally thousands of students who will possess a degree much sooner as a result of this. So all the work that's done by the Academic Senate and all the work that's being done by the Board of Governors is important in this issue. So I know we don't want to take all the time this morning on this, but I thought I would just say that.
Thank you. I am notified by our board liaison and chief technician now that we need to take a break to get ready for our next presenter. Member McDougall, a very short comment.
Very short comment, but I would like to take Dr. Scott's direction to this board very seriously. And I think we have to stay on top of this issue. I think there are a few issues that are more important for this board. I would ask, if it's not too much for the staff, in 2 or 3 page paper, that this board could look at, that looks a bit at the history of transfer for the California community colleges, that looks at the ghost, if you will, of the 60-40 and 65-35, because that was a pretty strong ghost at one point, and a very strong reference point that we held up to legislation to try to support transfer. So if it's at all possible, I think a brief paper, 2 or 3 pages, that gives an overview of where we've come, where we are, what the challenges are, would be a good piece for this board to have as a contextual framework, and I'd urge that we.
Okay,
Contain it.
colleagues, do you concur? Would you like?
Sure.
Chancellor, could we do
Yeah.
that?
Sure we could.
Okay, so be it. Okay, let's take a 10-minute, is 10 minutes enough, and Jerry? Yeah, okay.